Hey everybody, Ron Vaimberg here with my Ron Vaimberg podcast, and I am incredibly excited that I have the pleasure of having Brian Cooke, who is, in my opinion, the number one mortgage broker originator, mortgage broker owner in the country. And I'll explain a little bit about that in just a minute as to why I'm putting him there. Technically, he's number three. In my book, he's number one. But I've had the pleasure of knowing and working with Brian for a number of years. And we're going to hear a lot about his story. But first thing I want to do is welcome you to the Ron Vaimberg podcast. And Brian, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me, Ron, and thanks for everybody for tuning in and looking forward to sharing more about my journey through this wonderful industry that we're a part of here.
and it is a wonderful industry. It, often I'm asked, how do I choose who I interview? And sometimes it's clients, like Brian is a client of mine, but sometimes it's not. But in this particular day, the reason why I wanted to interview Brian is because his drive, his passion, his energy is unmatched. And I've had the pleasure of watching his journey transform after we had met each other back in, I think, Brian, it was 2016, if I remember.
That's right.
And we'll talk a little bit about when we first met. But the title of the podcast, or the title of this program today, is Inside the Mind of a Top Originator. So this is not how did he build his system. This is not, all the technicalities of his operation. This is about what's going on right between here, which anybody who's listened to me or heard me always knows that it's up here first before the action ever happens. So Brian, again, welcome to the podcast. And I'm going to start out with that the reason I look at you as just such an inspiration is because you're number three in the is it the Redder list or Scotsman list, or both?
RETR, yeah.
RETR, real estate track
Yeah.
record, which is
Yeah.
my favorite loan officer tool. And you're number three, and we know that the individuals above you, they have teams that are working underneath them, so they have more numbers coming in. Brian, and I know this for a fact, you originate every loan you take. You speak to every borrower that you write a loan for. And the numbers you do are astounding. In 2024, I believe it was 627 loans that you closed.
Yep.
So 627. So you guys can all do the math and you could say, that's over 50 a month. And it is over 50 a month. And whether you're looking to achieve what Brian's achieved or you're looking to just grow your business, but maybe not to that height, the most important thing is to understand from Brian what drives him and use some of those tools, not Brian's drive, what drives him, but what he processes in his head. Because if you're not performing at the level that you choose to be at, then we've got to just change our level of thinking. And that's why Brian's here today. So Brian, again, I'm so glad you're here. So let's start with the beginning of your journey. So we met in 2016. If I remember correctly, at that point, you were in the business about 14 years?
14 years. Just left Provident Funding, where I was there for 14 years. Worked in their retail retention department, tasked with trying to retain as many of our existing client base. It was a good breeding ground to teach me how to originate at extremely high volume, which I think a lot of other high volume producers will attest to. Being in a call center consumer direct channel gives you the ability to originate at a high volume. So I had just left Provident and was working at Movement Mortgage, which was took me a long time, probably a decade longer than I should have done it, to finally nudge myself and leave a cushy salary position to go 100% commission. And that's where I really enjoyed Ron's just viewpoint on the industry. I think you're a master at wording and crafting and asking great questions. So it was just a delight meeting you. And that's when I was just going off the wall and just learning a lot about what you had to offer.
and that's it right there. So Brian and I met, and I thank you for the compliments, but today is about you, Brian. Okay, so I appreciate what you're saying, but it is about you. Is when Brian came, we he met when I was holding one of my in-person purchase boot camps, which is a 2-day program, and he came, and no exaggeration, Brian was bouncing off the walls. He was just starting self-source generation, which is why he was coming to that program, but he was bouncing off the walls. His energy was incredible. Almost had to rein him in. Not almost. I actually had to rein you in a few times during the program because you were just so hyper. But there was just this incredible energy. And I remember that you were just a sponge and you were trying to learn everything. And we had started coaching after that because, and you've said it, not only you just said about the questions and what have you, but you mentioned something when we were talking the other day, and you said part of what I did for you in the beginning was it's like I was a therapist for you, and I don't like people calling me a therapist, but I know what you were talking about. So your mindset was you had all this energy, but you were all over the place. So what was the first thing that you had to rein in? What was the first thing that you did to start getting yourself dialed in that put you on the path to where you are today? What happened in between here?
Yeah, I was going through a difficult personal relationship. Just ended a relationship, a divorce. I didn't know at the time, looking back, how our mindset can be influenced by other factors, especially your plus one at home. And so the decision to not only take a leap from where I was professionally, but also in my personal relationship was a huge relief for me to get my mind right to be able to eventually reach my full potential. So that's where I sought out Ron to try to help guide me in my path to being able to originate self-source business.
You used the term your mind right. So we have a lot of people who are on this program and diff- people at the top of their game, some that are doing okay, but they want to do better, some that might even be just a little bit lost. And when you use the term get my mind right, what does that mean in
Just
your world? What does that mean getting your
it's
mind right?
putting yourself in a new environment, just escaping the past, and just you have to get inside. You got to get outside of your current environment to think bigger and to have a clear mind. So again, it was a very tough decision. It was just uncomfortable for a long period of time. It took me about a year where just you and
I
we
remember.
just did a
I
lot
remember.
of coaching, a lot of
I
a lot
remember.
of tears we shed.
Yep, I
But
remember.
have to go through that to excel, to reach your true potential. So uh,
So let me just jump in for a second. So I want everybody to understand that, in this case, Brian, your motivation was your pain. And so what we don't want to have is anybody thinking that, okay, I have to go through a divorce or I have to go through this extreme pain to tap into where, the greatest version of yourself. Certainly you can remember things that have caused you pain and use that as leverage, but today you're in a completely different place. You are a top originator. You over 600 loans closed in 2024, and you're growing when many people are trying to survive. So what I want to do is I want to get now into your head deep, which is what drives you to consistently grow? Because I know, and I know you well, it's not the money. The money is a result of your drive, but what drives you?
so I'll say, um, so I came over to, me and a couple of business partners started Sunny Hill in 2019. Everybody had a great few years. 2019, 2021, it was raining loans from the sky. Then 2022 hit, and I waited a couple months as rates started spiking, and then they didn't come back down. And I knew I had to take action. I had to do something to stay relevant, to stay elite, and that's where I sought out Tim Grover, I really liked his messaging. I read his book, Relentless and Winning. I'm not one to read a lot of books. I've only read probably 4 books the last decade. Darren Hardy's The Compound Effect and Entrepreneur Roller Coaster back in 2016. But I'm a big believer in just reading one book and then immediately implementing what you learn in that book. So after reading Relentless, my mind was just firing in all cylinders, and that's where I knew that winning takes a ruthless mindset. To never ever be satisfied with what you're going through is to keep pressing forward. That's when I made it publicly known that I would one day hit 1 billion in personal production. So I set a bar extremely high for me that I knew would take a lot of effort. But that's what drives me is just I've set a bar extremely high, and I'm not going to quit until I get there. And so I think it's important to set extremely high goals. Whatever your goal is right now, you should double that goal, and it should just be looming up there for you to strive for excellence. So
What does it mean? You see that goal of of $1 billion. Um, what does that mean to you, though? We all do things. We have goals, but we all have a meaning that we put to achieving that goal. So, what's your meaning for achieving that?
it's just reaching my full potential. I think we have to keep pushing ourselves, and that's kind of what going back to 2022 in a time when the market was contracting and half the industry was lost, and it just comes down to the thoughts in your mind. Your mindset controls your thoughts controls your actions then create your habits, and your habits then lead to the results that you have. So I've just been a big proponent over getting your mind right. You get your mind right, then everything will fall into place.
When you look at that $1 billion, how clear is that for you? The vision of
How clear is that
achieving,
for me?
the vision of achieving it.
I think that would be an incredible achievement, and I'm I'm a high achiever. I just love originating loans. I just love helping other people through the process of uh, getting um, getting into the homes and help saving them money. Back in 2022, when I set that goal for myself, I knew I couldn't do it by myself. Up until that time, it was just myself originating every single loan and even processing every single loan. So it required me to give up control over the whole process, which I think holds a lot of originators back, is thinking they have to do the whole thing from start to finish. I'm sure there's a lot of people in this call that are a one-man show. I was that way for 13 years. And it wasn't until I set that extremely high goal where I knew I had to implement change, to embrace the discomfort that goes with growing a team, but it's inevitable. And it's just something that we all have to take as originators, is to take that next leap. Got to grow a team.
You just said, but just so everybody understands, when Brian's using the word team, at least at this point, it is just anybody who is supporting the production that he brings in, not originating for him. Again, if somebody has people originating for them, I'm not begrudging their success at all. I'm just talking about, what Brian's model is here. But Brian, you just said something that I want to make sure didn't go unnoticed. And that is, one, you said you love what you're doing, you love helping people. And just so everybody knows, um, I know this to be true with Brian. This is not, the typical BS that sometimes you'll hear from some people. But Brian and I have known each other for many years, worked together, coaching for many years, and we never talk about money. We never talk about money. But one thing we do know is that Brian does like to have fun with money. And it's so interesting because I'm in a different stage of my life than Brian is. I'm a very driven individual and want to achieve great things, and I can very goal oriented as well. But I kind of have a rule that if I can't buy it for cash, I'm not buying it. That's kind of where I am at my place. And Brian, you have a little bit of a different philosophy on what triggers your motivation. So I'm going to share this picture. Let it come up. Can you just tell everybody about this picture?
Yeah. So, all right. Prior to 2022, not a car guy. My wife and I were in Miami for a music festival, and this car drove by, looked like a Batmobile, and I immediately fell in love. This was March 2022, also the time when rates started spiking. And then I made my declaration for 1 billion at that same time, and I figured I needed more motivation to push myself every day. So then that's when I decided to go out and lease not this car, but another. This is a Aventador, by the way. Another model of the Aventador for $7,400 a month to help push myself to be able to get through 2022.
Okay. And okay, so you had your first Lamborghini for $7,400 a month. So you didn't have this one yet, correct?
Not yet.
Okay.
That
And
one.
I
Yeah, go
remember
ahead.
our conversation, and you said you were getting another Lamborghini. I said, "Oh, so you're trading the other one?" He goes, "No, because I'm keeping them both." I'm like, "Because everybody needs two of them." And I go, "His and hers." But that's where you gave me an answer as to why you were doing it. So what was the answer? Do you remember?
So it was early 2023. I saw that Lambo that you just posted there, and it just motivated me throughout the 2023, I think to say season, to continue to elevate and reach my goal. Back in 2023, I say 2023 was harder than 2022. I always was very private, didn't do any social media. But then that's where I started posting on social media. I would use different pictures of dream dream Aventadors that I wanted weekly, posting my production weekly. Kept my mindset right. Kept me. Um, I like to say the closer we bring what we want into our life, and we're more repetitious about it, the higher our hunger for that grows. So it was just using that mindset to bring what I wanted in my life closer and to remind me like every single week. If I wasn't originating loans, I was just looking through car gurus, like just looking for different Aventadors that just help fuel me and motivate me to push myself harder. Because I think we all can push ourselves harder than what we think we can. And what happened, which we can talk about later in 2024, just completely blew my mind. I just never imagined I could get to the level where I'm at today.
And so you're saying you can't imagine you got to the level, but yet you set a goal for it. Actually, you've set a bigger goal than where you've
Yeah,
achieved. Let's talk about another goal that you set. And the reason why I'm going so deep with everybody on this is because I want you to understand Brian's power of focus. That he gets laser focused in on a goal. And again, your goal might not be $1 billion. Your goal might be one or two more loans. But that was the other thing that I wanted to bring up that Brian had said before. I'll paraphrase it, but basically said, if I want to grow my business, I've got to think differently. I've got to get uncomfortable. I've got to do something I'm not doing. And that is just so key. And that's really a message for everybody that the same level of thinking that has you where you are, especially if you are staying in the same place and you want more, then you have to acknowledge that the same level of thinking will not get you from where you are to where you want to be. So that's something where you need to change inside. You got to ask yourself a question. Well, to achieve this goal, what's going to drive me to do the things that need to be done versus how do I get there? How do I get there is a very mechanical process. The drive is what makes the mechanics work. And I bring this up because, Brian, obviously, everything you've been talking about here, everything that you do is about your drive. It's about your passion. And then, then you and I together figure out how we get you there. But without the drive, it's at a mechanical approach, and nobody's going to get where they want to be. And even if you do, you're not going to be happy because it's the drive that makes it fun. It's the drive that makes the journey. And, Brian, part of your goal is not only to, for the $1 billion and however many units that's going to be, but you also made a commitment a couple of years ago that you wanted to really make a difference for veterans. You really wanted to do a lot more in the veteran space than you had before. And you wanted to do that by offering them, very competitive pricing and just really, really worked on your outreach. So can you tell us a little bit about, your mindset about your passion for serving veterans?
Yeah, so mid 2023, with this goal of hitting a billion, I figured, well, what's my path? There's a lot of different ways we can, bring in loans. We could focus on FHA Streamline or VA IRRRLs or conventional, just a lot of it, different areas of the business. And so I just got tired of looking at other loan estimates from other competitors from veterans like it would come to me and just seeing how egregious those loan estimates were. So I went all in Memorial Day 2023 with my marketing spend, my marketing advertising to just fully focus on VA. It was a part of the business that I only originated a handful of VA loans. I think most of us say the same thing. We just don't come across it that often, and so that further fueled my daily drive is learning a new segment of the industry, which up to that point I just don't really know that much about it. We only know what we know from the loans that we originate. So in 2023, we ended up closing about 100 deals. VA purchase business is what I focus on, and then 2024 we closed over 300. So about 50% of my business now comes from veterans.
Okay. And from what I've seen, as far as what you're offering to veterans, has got to be some of the most attractive financing for them. And I believe you had mentioned also that your name is just spreading because you're doing such a great job.
That's correct. Yeah. So there's one thing at doing high volume. It's another thing doing it at high volume and high level of service at extremely low rates. So I also in 2024 we became obsessed with trying to drive as much of our clients to leave 5-star reviews. So like in 2024 we were able to do about 40% of our clients would leave us 5-star reviews, and 40%, I know there's room for growth there, but
How many
it's
five-star
just
reviews do you have now?
I have 310 on my Zillow profile, and we just started that about a year and a half ago.
Okay. Do you have five-star reviews anyplace else?
We have about 350 as a company on Google. I think 2/3 of those are mine.
Okay.
But
All right. So well over 500 five-star reviews. And I want to just address, because you did make a mention that, you are very, very competitive. And, your business model is not the same business model for everyone. Certainly people are going to work at higher margins than you do. And, you make a very good living. I'm aware of it. But not everybody's going to work within your model. And I just want everybody to not get lost in the fact where you say, oh, well, he's just offering low rates and that's why he's getting all this business. No, because you can't do 627 loans and consistently get five-star reviews unless you're taking care of clients. Because even if you get someone a low rate mortgage or a competitively priced mortgage, if you don't give them the service, you're not getting the review. Is that a fair statement, Brian?
100%. Pricing may get you in the door, but it's your ability to convert and to show your value proposition to consumers. A lot of other companies can offer the pricing that we have, but the differentiator is like, what do we bring to the table? Your ability to communicate your experience and how you're going to make it easier, better than your competition helps win you the deal.
You've said a number of times, you got to get your mind right, got to get your mind right, got to get your mind right. And we've talked a little bit about that. But when you're doing the volume that you're doing, and really, actually, anybody who's in this business, who's doing any loans, is dealing with whatever challenges, stress, frustration, whatever may be getting in front of them or getting in their way. But you've used with me a number of times the term mental toughness. So define that. Define what mental toughness is to you.
Mental toughness, I'd like to say is staying very even keeled, knowing that there's going to be setbacks, there's going to be wins, and just not getting too excited or too low when things go well or things don't go well. If you lose a deal, or we all get a deal, we lose a deal for whatever reason, go out and find a new deal. The quicker you can overcome setbacks, just the better you will produce, whether it's in work or in life. There's always going to be setbacks. Know that there's setbacks that are going to be that you're going to face on a daily basis, and use those setbacks as fuel for growth. Don't be a finger pointer, look at thumb pointer, I like to say. Just you got to have the mindset that everything is in your control. Market didn't do well today with the CPI. It doesn't matter.
No.
There's millions of consumers out there. There's always another referral partner or another consumer out there that you can go out and win business from. So just focus your mind on what you can control. Will go a long way in your ability to produce and reach the goals that you set for yourself.
You, you just described one of the things that is so important, and I see this day in and day out, where you made it clear rates, whatever happens with rates are going to happen, but there's such a big pool of opportunity of people who are going to need financing. The question I always ask people are people buying homes? Yes. Are people going to be selling homes? Yes. Then your job as an originator is to find those people. It's to find and figure out a way to get that out. So whether it's through advertising, whether it's through more referral partner relationships, whether it's working your database to build more referral partner networks, whether it's going to networking functions, whatever it is, you got to look at what you're doing. You got to look at where you are. And when you focus on what rates are doing, you're focusing on scarcity. That something else is going to impact what you do, or it's going to impact the results. And I'm not going to say that rate movement is not going to impact it one way or the other, but when you let that act as almost if it's the determining factor, it creates a paralysis where you don't control what rates do. But Brian, you just said that what you just talked about is that you have no thought of scarcity, that no matter what happens in the market, there's always people who need mortgage financing. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. You all have a past database. You all have two realtors per transaction. You have a title company. You have insurance companies. There's an endless amount of people for you to tap into. It's just, do you have the mind and the uh, the willpower to go out and take those daily actions that you need to take? It's all about number of dials, number of applications. Just focus your efforts on the activities that are going to move the needle. I'll share one of my tactics
Sure.
is I have I'm responsible for taking the loan from application all the way to conditional approval. And then I have a team that fully closes my loan for me, even talking to realtors and consumers. So my goal as an originator is to talk to as many consumers as possible. You're not going to get a loan unless you're going to talk to a consumer. So trying to free up your time to talk to as many consumers as possible, like tracking that metric, and then everything falls into place from there. The other thing is to work on your ability to convert, tracking your conversion percentage, because you're already spending the same amount of time talking to these people. If you don't convert those people, that's a huge loss. So again, it's just going back to looking at how you present, working on your presentation skills, getting more efficient with how you deliver your message to the consumer will just lead to more production for yourself.
Yeah. Brian, it's almost like you're doing a commercial for me, and that's not what I want. It's it's you're talking about consistently moving the dial to improve yourself. And obviously, we are coaching together and we've been working together for quite some time. But, now I'm even working with people on your team, the other Brian, and I know we're bringing more people into our discussions. But one of the things that I see consistently, and we just talked about it before, that the same level of thinking is not going to get you to where you want to be. And Brian, I know you, and you just described it. You keep saying, "What else do I need to learn? What else can I do better?" And I'm going to ask everybody. I'm going to challenge everybody who's on this program, who's listening right now, and ask you: do you ask yourself that question? Not how do I get more loans? What can I do better to get more loans? What can I do better to develop more relationships? What can I do better to get noticed more? Whatever your avenue is as far as how you want to grow your business, you need to ask the questions that improve the behavior that's going to lead it to that. And I find that many originators, we've had success in what we do. And because we've had success, we tend to start focusing outward because we believe that that's where things need to change because of whatever level of success we've had. And to your point, Brian, is everything you're saying here is the market's the market. What am I going to do better? And the other thing, which, and I know from our personal conversations, is that we usually just only work on one thing at a time. We make sure we get that dialed in. And believe it or not, that's not normal thinking. Normal thinking is I've got to do this, I've got to do this, I've got to do this, I've got to do this. And we're doing things methodically. And it's not because I'm telling you to do that. It's how your mind works in how you're improving different pieces in your company. So how did you realize that that gets you a lot further?
Oh, sorry. Can you repeat the
I said,
question on?
how did you realize, besides us talking, but how did you finally come to own that you've just got to be really laser focused on one, maybe two things at a time and not try to do everything?
Yeah, I mean, what I like about Ron is his ability to, or he keeps saying, our business is like a hose, and our goal is to plug each hole one at a time. I like to say the biggest cost of any business is missed opportunities. And so it's plugging one hole at a time, focusing on that, mastering that before you try to go on to the next. Because otherwise, you're just dabbling in many different things and not really getting anywhere. And so, yeah, I completely agree. We're working on now trying to expand our realtor relationships. Um, and so I know you're working with me and my team on that. So I'm
Sure.
looking forward to that.
And the amazing thing is, obviously, you are to consumer in your marketing, and we had talked about it for a while that you have all of these opportunities. You have two realtors on almost every transaction you're doing, and nothing was really being done with them. And you absolutely did not have or don't have I hate the word bandwidth, but I'll use it, the bandwidth to do more than that. And we also recognized that in your particular model, that wouldn't be the highest and best use of your time. Your highest and best use of your time, you said, is talking to consumers. We have many people on this program who are not um, don't have the budget or are not going to be advertising and promoting themselves the same way. So they're going to be dividing their time between working the lead, working the borrower to get them to say yes, doing what you do, and then also developing the referral partner relationships with realtors and what have you to get more leads coming in. And for the person who can't hire that other person or who doesn't have that other person, what advice would you give them as far as where they now have two responsibilities? And the two responsibilities are consumer, meaning they're not going to go consumer direct, but the leads they get in, mastering that, and then also simultaneously balancing that with building their network, which is going to bring them more business. So then they can afford to hire whomever they need. What would be your advice on that?
Yeah, I mean, again, it just goes back to your time and freeing up your time to talk to as many consumers. I think if you can get yourself to doing at least 2 to 3 loans consistently a month, if you're not already having a loan officer assistant, bring on a loan officer assistant so that you can get out of the weeds because that's not how you're going to bring in more loans. And so, yeah, my model that I'm attesting now is a little bit unique where I'm tasking my loan officer assistant who is the one speaking to the realtor a lot during this process since they already speak to them and building that relationship, incentivizing them to help cultivate that relationship. And every deal that we get from the realtor, I'm bonusing out my LOA. So again, that's where my time is focusing on talking to the consumer, the realtor's referral, and that should lead to higher production.
And obviously we see that it's working. We see, the growth in Brian, different Brian, everybody. That's his assistant, and he's eager. The other Brian, we'll call him Brian F. Brian F is very eager to talk to the realtors and the referral partners, and he's not just focusing loans, loans, loans. He's focusing on the bigger picture. So I just, some of you are not going to be able to connect fully to Brian's model because you're out there working, developing relationships with realtors. Many of you that are on this program either have been on my programs or are even clients of mine. And I know your story and you're out there developing relationships with referral partners. That's what we're working on. You are running your business in a different way, not wrong way, not right way, just a different way. It's your model, but it's going to come back to this point, which keeps being made by Brian. And it's what I say to you all the time. What is the highest and best use of your time? And I would task all of you. We heard what Brian's made it very clear. The highest and best use of his time is talking to borrowers. He has his lead generation system built. For you, if you are out there self-sourcing and you're working referral partners and what have you, then you've got to answer this question for yourself. What is the highest and best use of your time? Now, I'll give you a quick cheat sheet for it. Is if it's really up to you, first of all, the highest and best use of your time can never be processing. It should never be chasing documents. Okay. And that's something that you just outsource. You don't even have to bring on an employee. You can outsource the help with that. And we're not going to get into how that gets done here. But the highest and best use of your time is generating the referral partner relationships to generate the leads. So you generate the referral partner relationship so you can master working with the leads, the conversion that Brian was talking about, and then you deal with the high level problems that the rest of your team is not able to handle. And that's really what has freed up Brian to do what he does. He's got his marketing all set, but his team handles everything moving on up, moving to the end after, I think, Brian, you said from the conditional approval. But every so often something happens with the conditional approval and you have to jump back in because you have to fix it, correct?
Yes. As time has gone on, as I built my team, they've become mini Brian's, I guess, in the way I train them. So now they're very self-sufficient. It just takes time. Our team has taken time. I used to be still very involved in the back end of the process. And as time's gone on and they got more loans under the belt, now they're just able to close loans. So everything takes time. It's an investment in your future growth that you just got to take that leap. Just got to get started with changing the way you think. Will go a long way.
And here's the funny thing. When Brian and I are on our calls, it's like half the time he's not saying anything. Because one thing I know about you, Brian, is you are an incredible listener. You're just, and like I'll even say, like, Brian, are you with me? Okay. And he's like, yeah, I'm with you. He goes, I'm just taking it all in. And what's amazing is it's like, they talk about, by the way, I'm not calling you a Supreme Court justice, Brian, so don't let that go to your head. But one of the things, if you've ever actually, if you've ever watched at the Supreme Court level, you might almost look at the justices, and this is even can happen at the state level. You don't even think they're listening. You don't even think they're listening, but obviously you can't ask as a lawyer, are you listening to me? But once they're done, once the lawyers are done presenting, all of a sudden the judges start just firing questions. They've heard every word. They're listening in their own way. And Brian is a great listener because I hear, he's listening, and then we get on our next call and I can see the actions, how much the dial has been moved each time. Brian, I know you do not waste time. Okay? You're not sitting there. Other than what you're posting on social media, we've never really had this conversation, but do you really spend a lot of time surfing social media, or are you just focused on what you're putting out there?
I focus just putting information out there. I the moment I see myself trying to just, I think it's an addiction a lot of us have. We hop on social media, and then it's like 30 minutes later, like what just happened? What did I just do with my time? So yeah, I try to avoid the endless scrolling that you could go through. Um, another So yeah, I'm just very focused in originating. It's always on, never off for me. I enjoy my drives. I drive between Laguna Beach and Reno every couple of weeks. Just listening to podcasts. I'm a big proponent of fueling your mind with the things that you need to be focusing on. A couple of people that I have great respect for and helped me along this journey is Ed Milet, Patrick Bet-David, his Valuetainment. Great content out there. It definitely wouldn't be where I am now without Ed Milet. Had the privilege of
Great.
meeting him back in December. I went out to his event, to his house. Um, Max Out 2025 was his event, but I found Ed back in 2023 in the summer, and his message really resonated with me, to just maxing out. So 2024 was my year of just max out. I prepped myself for over a year that 2024 would be the year I just go absolutely all in, dedicate my time to just originating as much as I possibly can. I told my wife about this, like going back to earlier, who you have at your home is extremely important. So I couldn't have done what I did without her support and, taking care of all the household stuff and, making food for me and all that stuff that you need to have that support system. So it's just been a great journey, and I'm just looking forward to what's to come here.
And Brian, your energy is contagious. If anybody wants to ask Brian a question, throw it in the chat box. Like we've got just a couple of minutes left here, but you can throw it in the chat box. Oh, let me make sure the chat box is open. Hold on, maybe that's why I haven't. Okay, nobody could. That was my fault. So if anybody was trying, nobody sent me. Okay, the chat box is now open. If you want to ask any questions of Brian, how does Brian handle his pre-qualifications? They are so time consuming. Now everything's flying in. So hold on one second, Brian. How do you handle your pre-qualifications? They're so time consuming. This is from Josh. In order to do 600 plus loans, how do you do it?
Yeah, so I take in an average of about 35 applications a week, one out of every three applications. I'm focused on purchase business, one out of three fund. The way I structure my day is I'm just obsessed about just taking as many leads as I can. I do buy leads, and just compiling as many during the day, getting as many people interested to apply, and then I process all my applications after all the incoming dies down, around 5 o'clock local time, and just processing the applications, reaching back out to those clients by the next morning. Um, and
How do you move that many files though? Because because you're doing an extraordinary amount of business. How do you? It seems like you've somehow shortcutted the pre-qualification process.
Yeah, I mean, well, I use software that, well, I can't get into too many details of strategy. My CEO would kill me, but
Okay.
just focused on tech that's extremely fast. And I'm just an absolute efficiency nut. I have all my templates already drawn up, so it's just like changing a few things here or there, and just just plowing through it. That's where I like you you need to focus on one task and try to plow through all those tasks. I guess I'll give you a couple other secrets. I don't. I avoid email and text communication as often as possible. I make people get on the phone. I do all my um, selling over the phone. So that frees up a lot of time. No longer winded emails. I don't make appointments with people. I think the whole process of making appointments and sticking to those kind of makes you very rigid into your scheduling. So I just attack everything as it comes, as it comes. It's a race for me to stay caught up with texts, voicemails, and emails. So I think that's critical to increase your volume, and to maximize your time is to just you stay on top of all inquiries as they come in. That's the number one focus for me, is just getting back to people relentlessly as quickly as possible.
I'll throw in there because again, your model's a little bit different. Somebody's asking, how many states do you license in, and where do you get your leads? So I know one of the places you do your leads is on Bank Rate. You're consistently advertising there. How many states are you licensed in?
Uh, About 18. They're making a big push to go into every single state by the end of the year, except New York and Alaska.
New York. Okay. Yeah, I'm from New York. Stay out. Um, unless you have at least a year to get a license, stay out because New York is just an absolute nightmare. Regarding VA prospects, please explain two areas in that specific market. Right, two areas in that specific market that impacts your ability to convert those. I don't really understand that question. Andrew, I think it's Andrew. Andrew, if you could rewrite that question because I don't quite understand the question. Um, we talked about lead generation, good play. Do you, do you know, can you recommend a good place to buy leads? So Peter's asking. We know Bank Rate's very expensive. So do you do any other purchase?
Um, let's see if I can get into that. I don't know if I can. I'm allowed to get into that.
I don't want to get you in trouble. So if you can't
Yeah.
answer, you can't answer. I'm going to move on to the next one where this is from, you know, Angelina. Angelina. Do you have a script or advice on connecting with realtors or consumers to why they should choose you?
Um, do we have a script? Yes, we have a script.
I know that.
Ron helped develop that script, and yeah, that's what I'm tasking my loan officers or loan officer assistants is to have that conversation with realtors at different points in the process, take their temperature with how they feel that we're doing before the clear to close call, having that conversation with that realtor again to just see what their needs are and to see if we can help grow their business.
Mhm. And that's something that we've definitely talked about that you don't wait till the end of a transaction to find out how you're doing with a realtor. If you're constantly updating them and you keep asking, are you okay? Are you happy with what we're doing so far? Is there anything else you'd like us to be doing? You're putting on a performance that makes it very easy for you to get that conversation with a realtor at the end. Say, when can we spend 5 minutes together? Let me share with you what else I can do to help you. Let me find out what else is important to you. And then, there's many steps that are involved with what I call competitive displacement, but they're all simple steps. It's about asking questions that the average and typical loan officer will never ask. And I just gave you an example of one of them, and that is, and Brian, you talked about it, is how are we doing? Okay. How you doing? Are you liking the way this is working? Is there anything you wish we could do better? And those two simple questions, you'll be amazed at how realtors will respond favorably. They'll become advocates for you very quickly. Um, most of your leads are generated by phone call or online.
Most of my applications, I drive the applications. I have quick conversations with the pricing that I deliver to consumers, which is a combination of being a broker and what we've built here. And we're just extremely cost focused and driving down our costs as a company to be able to deliver some of the very lowest rates in the country. So I go straight to price. I don't BS. I don't try to divert the conversation. I'm dealing with a lot of rate shoppers, and even referrals these days are shopping you a lot with rates so high. So I'm just very direct to the point, and I get straight to it in delivering the information that I feel that they are looking for.
And you did that by asking questions. By the way, if anybody's wondering about how regimented Brian is with his calls and his schedule, the fact that we're talking at 2 o'clock in the afternoon is unheard of between him and I. Our coaching calls, I'm in New York, he's either in California or Reno, and we never speak any later than 6:30 a.m. his time. Okay. Now, Brian, by the way, if you ever wanted to do 5 a.m., I'm up. I'm back working by 8, so we can do that as well if you want. But being serious is you when you are very much dialed in when you're working. I just want to make one quick comment, and we got a couple last questions here, and then we're gonna gotta wrap it up. But you talk about the social media scrolling. I want to just give everybody this tip. I teach this in many of my classes. Okay, you got a phone here. Okay, and if you're, I always do this. If you're one of these, okay, go through it. I want you to ask yourself this question. And this, I've never been crazy with social media, but what got me off of it as far as consuming it, I still post a lot, but I don't consume it. What got me off it is I asked myself this question. I said, after I am done scrolling, do I feel better, neutral, or worse? And almost every time I finished, I felt worse. And I literally said to myself, this is how I broke it. Okay. It drives my friends crazy because, like, you're not on Instagram, you're not doing this, you're not doing that. I'm like, guys, just regular text me or call me. I have my friends that get mad at me. And once I realized, I go, I usually feel worse, either because I just went through a whole bunch of garbage, or two, I just feel like, Brian, you said 30 minutes later, what did I just do? I just wasted 30 minutes of my life that I'll never get back. And once I realized that I never felt better after I was on social media, I'm like, why would a sane person do this? And so I'm going to challenge you with that. I'm not going to tell you to completely abandon social media. Do whatever you want. But ask yourself, do I ever feel better when I'm finished? And if the answer is no, maybe there's something to look at there. Okay, that's all. That's all I will say regarding that. Let me just take a look. Candace, she said, "Great to see your success." Candace Davis. So she said, "Great to see you. You've come a long way since Movement Mortgage. Are you running super low margins in a broker environment to sharpen the price?" I wouldn't define it. I wouldn't define it as super low.
My margin, I
Yeah.
typically try to stay around 1 point,
Okay.
1 point margin.
Okay. Which is going to be on the lower end, but certainly not. I once had someone tell me they were working at a 25 basis point margin. I looked at him. I go, "You're insane." He goes, "I can't
That's
compete any other way." And by the way, this wasn't a client. He goes, "I can't compete any other way." And I'm like, "You just spent 2 days with me at this training program talking about how you could compete." And I go, "You're still going to stay at 25 basis points?" And he's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Cool." Um, I doubt very much he's still in the business. Okay, we're not getting into that. Let's see. You said, what's that? Mike. Okay. Okay, somebody, I don't know. It just says Mike. I don't know the last name. Brian, I knew you were going to do things ever ever since movement. Love seeing your success. Ron is great. Thank you. Okay, so somebody took one of my classes back in 2018. Mike, you can just send me your last name because I don't know. I can't see it. Wait, maybe I can. Can I? No, I can't. Um, so, okay. So, Angelina. Oh, Angelina. You're going to be on our email list. As long as you don't unsubscribe, you'll be on our email list because you've attended this program. So right now, pretty much everything I'm doing is virtual, unless I'm doing privates that companies are hiring me to. I do want to get back into doing in-person classes, but it just seems like the appetite is still not big enough for a lot of people to want to travel. So I do a lot of virtual classes. This is a studio that I have set up. We've got multiple cameras. I'm able to see people on camera. We actually just finished a program called Breaking Boundaries, which was 4 2-hour sessions over a period of 2 weeks. And we are going to be planning to run that again in the next 60 days. So you'll be hearing about that as well because it was such a great success the first time. And we do it in 4 2-hour time blocks. It's not a webinar, it's a live interactive training. I'm on camera, you're on camera, we talk. It's not a webinar. So anybody who's interested in that, you'll just keep your eyes open for the emails, keep your eyes open on, connect with us on social media because we're posting things there as well. Brian, I warned you I was going to ask you this question. It's been 2 years since you did a podcast. You've had time to prepare for it. You've done many podcasts before. What's one thing you've never told anybody about the business? I'm not looking for your personal life. What's that one thing you've never shared with an audience that you're going to share with this one?
a great question. I still am stumped.
God.
I thought about it.
Brian, I told you you couldn't tell me, so I figured you would have had something. You can't think of one thing. Come on.
Um, I'm absolutely stumped. Be
Okay.
more specific with your questioning.
Now I got to be more specific with my question. Okay, here's the final. Then, leaving this call, all the things that we talked about, what would be the one final piece of advice that you would give to everyone on the call to just take them one step closer to where they're truly committed to being? What would be that one thing?
I like to say it just the mindset's the most important thing in life. The most important thing in your results is the thoughts that go into your head. If you don't already have a coach, definitely sync up, get a coach, get a mentor, someone in the industry who's already achieved what you want to achieve. There's no greater way of reaching your potential by just finding someone that's already there, and it'll help shrinken your your path to what we're all fully capable of.
Brian, obviously, me being a coach and a trainer, I definitely am going to advocate for a coach or a trainer if you don't have one. But you got to find the right person for you.
And
You
then
got to find the right person.
also get in the right system. There are a lot of originators that are they're just not in the right system. The not the right origination or operating system. And if you feel that way, just know there's opportunities out there. I've been on both sides of the industry in retail and wholesale, and I'm a big broker advocate, not just selling lower rates, but you control everything. You can control just the entire part of the business, and that's what I love is just growing everything from the ground up. That's why I'm just so pumped every day. Is just I have complete control over the whole part of the business. So just look, take a step back at where you are in your journey and where you are, who you represent, and if make sure it's congruent, that your goals are congruent with what the company goals are and your manager's goals are, and just you got to break away if it's not. We only have
That
one life to live and so much time, and you'll just be more fulfilled. It may be uncomfortable for a short time, but I promise you that it it's the right thing to do.
And I have a feeling, Brian, that's the one thing you've never said to anybody before on a podcast.
You're right about that.
So you made me work for it. Um, yeah, you. I have a saying: life is too short to work with people you can't stand working with. And as long as you hone the skills that you need to hone, which is whether it's prospecting, whether it's lead conversion, whether it's time management, whether it's all of above, as you master this process, you develop a sense of freedom. And somebody asked, do you ever sleep? Brian sleeps a little bit, but I can't criticize him for that because I don't sleep much either. But there's a difference if you don't sleep because you're passionate about what you do. If I may, I'm going to just sum it up this way, and then we're going to end it here. I read an article. I wish I could find it. It was many years ago, and it was really game changing for me. And it was about life balance. Everybody's looking for life balance. And the way the guy wrote it, he goes, people are trying to measure life balance in time. You don't measure life balance in time. You'll never measure life balance. Are you happy? And so if you work hard and you have a spouse that understands it, they get it, but you also, when you're not working, you're there. It's not like you're still working in your head, even though you're not present. And you have a spouse that understands that, or a significant other, or whomever, or children, you got balance. It's when you're never there and you're not present, you don't have balance. And that used to be me. And my son kind of, not only the article helped, but my son many, many years ago, he's 31 now. But when I was traveling, I used to do a crazy amount of travel, 15, 20 days a month. And I'd come home and I'm always on my phone, always on my phone. He goes, Dad, even when you're here, you're not here. Oof, that hurt. And he was
I'll,
dead. He was dead right.
I'll add to that. I think you just gotta keep dreaming. I think when you dream or like reaching your goals, whatever your dreams are, you live a more happier life, more fulfilled life, and to never stop dreaming. Set high goals and is again extremely important for living a happy life.
Yeah,
Is you can't live. I don't feel you can live a happy life if you stop dreaming. So.
I love that, Brian. Love that. Brian, we're out of time. I can't thank you enough. I knew that we were going to go longer than my normal podcast, so I'm glad you were able to make the time for this. Obviously, I love the work that we do. I am so grateful to all of you that came here and made it through the whole podcast. You're here till the end, and for all of you that had to go, I hope you got something out of it and that it was worthwhile. And maybe you'll come back and you'll listen to it again. Brian, as much as I coach you and I work with you, I always also when I talk with you, it inspires me. So thank you. Don't worry, I'm not paying you for that time though. Just so you know that, right? Um, but no, Brian, it's such a pleasure. You are somebody put Annette put a fire emoji, and that's what you are. You're on fire. So thank you, everybody. Brian, thank you, and everybody make it a great day, and we'll see you on the next one. Take care.